try, to the extent that they can do anything about it, to get that in place before Obama comes into office.
Norman Finkelstein,
so that
he
can show an Israeli electorate that this was a successful operation from Israel's point of view.
Norman Finkelstein, do you agree with Ambassador Indyk that Israel would have continued the ceasefire if Hamas hadn't started firing rockets into Israel?
Well, the record shows that Hamas wanted to continue the ceasefire, but only on condition that Israel eases the blockade. As your viewers surely know, long before Hamas began the retaliatory rocket attacks on Israel, Palestinians were facing a humanitarian crisis in Gaza because of the blockade. The former High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mary Robinson, described what was going on in Gaza as a destruction of a civilization. This was during the ceasefire period. Now, I think it's important to keep in mind, Mr. Indyk wants to talk about the book. Well, I think we should talk about the book. In fact, I stayed up till 1:30 a.m. to complete the book, make sure I read up to page 415, read every word of the book. The problem is with his book, as with his presentation here, is he systematically misrepresents the record of the peace process. He's lying not only to his readers, but to the American people. He keeps putting the burden of responsibility or the impasse in the peace process on the Palestinians. A moment ago, he referred to the rejectionists who are trying to block a settlement of the conflict. What does the record show? The record shows, as I said a moment ago, for the past 20 or more years, the entire international community has sought to settle the conflict on the June 1967 border with a just resolution of the refugee question. Are all 164 nations of the United Nations the rejectionists? And are the only people in favor of peace the United States, Israel, Nauru, Palau, Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Australia? Who are the rejectionists? Who's opposing a peace? According to Mr. Indyk's account of the negotiations that culminated in the Camp David and Taba meetings, he says it was the Palestinians that were blocking a settlement. What does the record show? The record shows that in every crucial issue raised at Camp David, then under the Clinton parameters, and then in Taba, at every single point, all the concessions came from the Palestinians. Israel didn't make any concessions. Every concession came from the Palestinians. The Palestinians have repeatedly expressed the willingness to settle the conflict in accordance with international law. The law is very clear. July 2004, the highest judicial body in the world, the International Court of Justice, ruled Israel has no title to any of the West Bank and any of Gaza. They have no title to Jerusalem. East Jerusalem, according to the highest judicial body in the world, is occupied Palestinian territory. The International Court of Justice ruled all the settlements in the West Bank are illegal under international law. Now, the important point is, on all those questions, the Palestinians were willing to make concessions. They were willing to allow Israel to keep 60% of the settlements, 80% of the settlers. They were willing to compromise on Jerusalem. They were willing to give up basically on the right of return. They made all the concessions. Israel didn't make any concessions. How is this rendered in Martin Indyk's book? It's rendered as, quote, Barak's bold and courageous initiatives for peace, and Arafat and the PLO rejecting the bold and courageous initiatives of Barak. Constantly, he turns reality on its head.
Ambassador Indyk, your response to that?
I told you, Amy, I'm not here to debate Norman Finkelstein. That was not the ground rules that you
I'm talking about your book.
set for inviting me on this program, and I'm not going to respond to his ad hominem.
But he's talking about. No, but we want to give you a chance to represent your own book.
Look, yeah, that's what I thought you were doing. Seriously, I hope your viewers and listeners will read the book and make up their own minds. I tried to give an honest accounting. It's a self-critical book, and it's a book in which my account of what happened is critical deeply critical of the mistakes that we in the American peace team made. But I do think that there is enough blame to go around. The book is also deeply critical of Ehud Barak, and it tries to lay out in as honest a way as possible from somebody, yes, who had a catbird seat. I was involved in all of those negotiations, intimately involved.
What were those mistakes, Ambassador Indyk?
I've tried to account that honestly, and what Norman Finkelstein has done is simply distort my argument and loaded it up with his usual paraphernalia of legal resolutions and so on.
Well,
but if people want to understand just how difficult it is to make peace, then I hope that they will read for themselves rather than accept his propaganda.
Well, let me ask what you think should happen right now. How does Barack Obama not repeat the mistakes of the past as you outline them in Innocent Abroad?
Thank you. I think that one fundamental lesson from both the Clinton approach, which was to try to transform the Middle East through peacemaking, and the Bush approach, which was essentially to try to transform the Middle East through war-making, regime change, and democracy promotion, is that Barack Obama, while painting a vision of a peaceful and secure and normal region, needs to be very realistic and to level with the American people about what can be achieved. Both Clinton and Bush, different in so many respects, sought to transform the region, sought to make it over in America's image. I think Barack Obama needs to have a more humble approach, a less arrogant approach, one that seeks to work with the region's leaders and peoples to try to help them move towards a more peaceful world. The American role is indispensable, but we need to be wiser, we need to be more flexible, we need to understand that there are huge differences between us and them, and we need to